Coming up on today's episode.
Good Monday morning to you all. YouTube here with you at the computer once again. We have completed our week of Windows 11. I think I've gotten a good idea of what I'm up against here. Now, I did not do a full week of just nothing but Windows 11. There were times that I booted into Linux for this or that. And, actually, that gave me a better perspective of the differences, I think. I mean, it's just like I said before, if you use a certain OS for over a certain length of time, well, it becomes more natural, more normal. It's idiosyncrasies or whatever you want to call it of the operating system. You just get used to it. But when you actually boot between them, and then you use one, for maybe an hour a day, and then the other one for a couple hours a day, or whatever, you get to seeing a pattern of how they work. The hard drive runs constantly in Windows 11. It always has ran more in Windows than it would in Linux or anything like that. But it just seems to run constantly. And it's always doing something, and that actually affects the timing of during things. Now, when I was updating this one file, I'm going to show you in just a second. I had to actually stop typing because the Windows was updating whatever it was updating, and it was losing track of its keystrokes. So stuff like that, to me is a kind of a bother. I don't think an operating system should do that. I think even if it is doing something else, it should be able to keep track of the keystrokes and fill them in later after it gets done with whatever it's doing. That's my opinion on that. So this one didn't do that for some reason. Of course, it was after I just booted up. Now, that's another thing I've noticed about Windows is a lot of times when you actually get to, I've done some time trials to the boot up screen or whatever you want to call it, the time it takes for, from starting from scratch to getting up to, this basically background with the task tray all filled in, and even on Windows there's a startup sound. So once that's done, that was my indication that the system was ready to use. Well, it's not in Windows anyway. Because if you go ahead and press something like trying to start up a program, Thunderbird or Brave or anything, it doesn't matter what it is, there's going to be a significant delay, and even sometimes it doesn't even record that keystroke to where you don't actually start the program. You think you have, but then you go back later after you've done some other stuff and realize that, well, that program didn't start. So for my tests for the time trials, I've tried to basically make sure, that everything is working as it should. I've tried to wait on the time trials until the system was basically quiet like it is now. And then I would hit the button to start the program, to start the time trial, to give an honest, of how long assessment of how long it took to start up the program. So let me show you that file real quick. Now, I don't know how well you can see it, but I'll read them all so if you can't see it. The title is Time Trials for Windows 11 versus MX Linux. And these are Windows 11 figures, boot to desktop, and that's full background, icons on the taskbar, and startup sound. Now, the first time I did this was 2:36:60. That's 2 minutes, 36 seconds, and 61 hundredths of a second. Now, I noted later boots into Windows that it was going a lot quicker, so I thought, well, I'll do it again. And possibly the first time I did it was on an update. You know how Windows likes to update and it'll do half of it as you restart the program, and then half when you start the program back up again. So I think that's what it was doing, because the second time I did exactly the same thing, the time was 2:02:54, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and 54 100ths of a second. So that was significantly, 30 seconds faster. So I feel like that was more of a, normal startup time for Windows. Although, having said that, Windows is almost always updating. Almost every time that I would boot, you get the message. I'll bring it up here on the thing. Now, when you get this here, a lot of times it will say restart and update and shut down and update, things like that. Now it's just saying restart and shut down now, so apparently that's not an update yet. But if I run this long enough in Windows, generally there's an update that pops up, and it will come up with the restart update and all that stuff, and that means it's on an update cycle. So I think that was the first test I did was on one of those cycles. So now the next thing I did was start up Thunderbird. It took 40 seconds and 1/100th of a second, I guess is what it would be. It doesn't seem too bad. And startup Brave was 26 seconds and 42 100ths of a second. So actually, if we compare that to MX Linux below, the Brave time was actually quicker in Windows than it was in Brave, and it was in MX Linux. I'm getting all my terms here mixed up, but that's nothing unusual for me. So on MX Linux, if we boot to the desktop, that's again full background icons on the taskbar. No, there's no startup sound in MX Linux. So that time was 1:37:80, 1 minute 37 seconds and 80 100ths of a second. So significantly again faster than Windows, even at its fastest. That's almost 30 seconds faster. So, and if you look at the update time, that's almost a minute faster. So, I have to say that's a significant win to me for MX Linux, because I probably am different than most people using computers. I generally reboot several times during the day into a different operating system or whatever the reason, and those times, between the startup and the reboots and things like that add up. So, looking at the start of T-Bird, 1689. Now that's 16 seconds at 89 100ths of a second. That's significantly faster than Windows, which was 40 seconds. So again, the startup of Brave though was slower, 37:14. That's 37 seconds and 14 100ths of a second to start up Brave. Now I've always noticed that Brave starts up slowly in Linux. I don't know why that is, but it does. So I'm not going to say too much about that part of it, because that's not a big long time. I mean, a few seconds here or there is not going to make all the difference in the world, especially if you're just doing it once a day, like most people. Most people get their computer and they turn it on during the day. They may not sit there in front of it like all day like I do, but they just leave it on, and then it's not. If the program is up, if they start a email program or a browser or whatever, they leave it up. They don't take it down each time they start it up, or want to use it. So I don't consider the startup times for the applications that significant. So, but the startup time I do, because again, like I say, I particularly go between different operating systems, and that startup time or the boot up time for the operating system is kind of important to me. So, so that's that on that. Now, what my general feeling is about Windows, and it always has been, Windows is slow for an OS. And this comes from using Mac OS years ago and things like that. It tried to copy the Mac OS, you know what I'm saying? It tried to be the same thing. It never could be, because it never has been as good. And anybody that's followed along with the Mac OS knows that it has its leanings in Linux and OS whatever it is. I'm messing that up, but it's been so long since I messed with that stuff, I've forgotten half of it. Anywho, it's a faster, well, just like Linux is faster than Windows, obviously for what it does. It is a faster operating system, and Windows has tried to basically run off its Windows or its DOS kernel, and it's always been limited by that. And like I said, it just doesn't run as fast. It's not as smooth. I mean, it gets close at times, but it just never has been as efficient as other operating systems like that. So that's my first strike against Windows, and I'm like I said, I have been a Windows user in the past for years. It's not like I'm not a member of the gang, as it were. But I've used other operating systems as well, and I think most people's impression of another operating system like Mac OS X or something like that is that it's so much simpler and easier to use. Well, Windows tries to emulate that as best it can. Now, you just saw something pop up there. I had no idea what that was. I've seen that, I'll call them artifacts in Windows 11 since I've been using it this past week. I don't know what they are or why they do that, but they do it from time to time. Something looks like it's going to start up and then it goes away, and that's it. Now, I was sitting here yesterday playing around with something, and I got a notice that a device had finished setting up. Well, I haven't tried to set up any devices in Windows 11, I don't think, since I started this. But apparently, Windows had done this on its own, I guess, and tried to install a device. Whatever the reasoning or whenever it was, I don't know, but it's stuff like that I don't care for. And I'm not saying that Linux is perfect. It is not. But it is superior to Windows 11. We'll put it that way. The update thing, and that's another thing. You have updates constantly in Windows. It seems like every time you reboot, there's an update. Then you have to wait for that, and I'll do it. Now, I'm not saying OS or the Linux doesn't update. It does. But in Linux, you get a little icon down here that turns green, and that lets you know that there'll be a notification come up for a second or two that you have a update available, and it goes away. And this icon down here in the task tray turns green, and you know there's an update. Well, you can choose to or choose not to. No, it doesn't make any difference to the OS, really, whether or not you install that update. And if you do and choose to install it, you basically click on it. It comes up and asks you for your password. That's one of the things about Linux that doesn't happen as much in Windows, but it asks you for your password, and then once it does that, it goes into a terminal type screen. And if you click anywhere else on the desktop, well, that goes away. You don't even see it. It's running, in the task, but you don't really even see it. It doesn't do anything, and it closes automatically, and it goes on your way. You can still just do whatever you're doing. Now, Windows, on the other hand, you've done this. The users of Linux have done, or Windows have done this many times. You see that there's an update when it stops, when you shut down or whatever. It says it's updating, goes up to 15 or 30% or whatever it is, and then it goes ahead and stops. Well, then the same thing happens the next time you start it up. It finishes the update and it goes from 30% to 100%, and then you do that. Whatever, and that gets to be an almost every time occurrence because Windows, like I said, is constantly updating. So for that type of situation, I'd have to give the clear advantage to Linux because, again, it does update, but it's very transparent compared to the way Windows does it. and it doesn't take any of your time. I mean, other than to click the little icon and put your password in. That's the only thing it does. I mean, it's gone from then. You don't have to worry about it again. So, like I said, that's just a much better system to me of doing it than the way Windows does it. That's just my opinion. Again, that's what this is all about, is my opinion. And again, this is not a total test of Windows 11. I've had enough of Windows my lifetime that I don't need to sit there and test every aspect of the operating system. I suppose if I had nothing else available, it would be, I'd have to use it. But I'm not limited to this operating system. I can choose other operating systems. And for years and years, I did Hacintoshes, and again, running Mac OS X on Intel hardware works just fine. And again, that's Linux based. I mean, you want to call it Unix based or whatever you want to call it, but it's not based on the same kernel. We'll just put it that way. And I think I've seen signs of actually Windows going more towards that kernel and more towards that type of operation. And of course they haven't got to it yet, but they seem to be getting away from their DOS kernel and getting back into a more mainstream, which is a good thing. I mean, if you do have to use Windows, I mean, there's still a lot of offices out there that run Windows, and so if that's part of your job, well, I mean, you have to run it, and that's just the way it is. But for us guys that are not working, we don't have to do that. We can run what we want. So. There's some things that Windows does better than Linux. I think probably still, although it's getting better in Linux, I think still the setting up of hardware, things like that, for drivers and things like that, I think Windows probably does a better job than Linux does. I'm not saying, people that are used to Linux think nothing about it because they're used to doing it that way, and again, it's just easy for them to do it that way, and it is for me as well now. But like I said, it's just more straightforward for a beginner. We'll put it that way. You click here, you click there, to set this or that up or whatever. And Windows generally does the rest, and it's more plug and play. We'll just put it that way. How's that? More compatible with plug and play, but. And I know there's a lot of Windows users that complain about the way it is, but they're the guys that probably have to use Windows and have no choice. So, anywho, that's that. Programs that are harder to find in Windows than they are in Linux, shareware programs or freeware programs, I guess is better said than that. Just like the ShareX that I'm using for a screen recorder. Used to, you didn't have things like that. You had to run a program that would let you do it maybe 5 minutes at a time, and sometimes it would put a watermark on your video or whatever. And so I'm glad to see that at least ShareX now you can have a screen recorder and it doesn't have any limits like the previous versions do. It's a complete open source project type thing, and like I said, it works well. So I think you'll agree that it's every bit as good as Kazam is, and in fact, I think let's do that. Let's for the heck of it, to compare. Obviously, the background's going to be different, but you can see the way the mouse moves and things like that. And let's go over to Mac. I got Mac on the brain for some reason. Let's go over to MX Linux now, and we'll do a screen recording in Kazam, and just compare the difference and see how that works out. So stay tuned. All right, we are back once again over in the MX Linux department, using Kazam as our screen recorder now. I don't think you can see a lot of difference other than the background's obviously different from one operating system to the other. I could use the same background, but I prefer to be having something different on Windows than I do on this. So that's my preference. one of the things I kind of wanted to mention is the fact that I can go here, and I've already done this because I want to make sure it was done, but you'll see what I'm talking about anyway. If we go into Explorer here, File Explorer, File Manager, it's actually called in Windows or in Linux. But you'll see that we have a Windows 10 drive here. That's the old version of that I installed the other day, that played with, and has the girl on the desktop, things like that. I have my local hard drive. That's a USB hard drive there. That's a 2 terabyte SanDisk. That's the one I took on vacation. Had all my footage for my trip and stuff on. The Elements SE, now that's the one I'd use for my local, and when I say local, that's to this computer, hard drive for video saving and exporting and things like that. This is actually the Windows drive, the Windows 11 drive. That's a 1 terabyte drive. I'll click on that and we'll show you. There you go. I've already logged into it. But if you go into Users, and there's me, and if we go into Documents, and Share X, and Screenshots, and that's one thing about Windows. It loves its folders. But if you can see, this is the one I did over in Windows 11, and I know there's no way you can tell that. I had to go through trial and error to find out which one it was. That's one of the things I don't like about ShareX. There's no way to basically name what you're saving. In other words, it should pop up, I think, when you tell it to save, that it should pop up and give you an option to save it to a file name that you want to save it as. That's one of them, and this is the other one here that we did, and I'm going to show you where I put them at. It was in the Elements, Raw Video, today's date. There they are, right there. So when this Kazam file is finished, I will put it in the same place, and we have all that done, and I can slip them all into Shotcut or whatever I prefer to use. I've been playing around with the VideoPad on that Windows 10. I think that's fun to use just for a change. I can remember back in the day when I had VideoPad, and it was a good little video editor actually. And so, I mean, Shotcut's pretty much the same as far as the quality of the video and things like that. But I don't know, I kind of liked it. But anyway, that's just me. So that's one thing you can't do in Windows. You cannot go over to the Linux drive and extract files and things like that. So there's an advantage for your Linux users as far as that's concerned. You can, and that works out with, I believe, Mac OS X as well. I believe you can see their hard drives as well if they happen to be on the same system. I haven't tried that with this, but I have had Linux and OS X and Windows on the same hard drive. That was way back in the day, but I have had it. So, anywho, as of right now, that's an advantage for Linux. So pretty much that's what I'm going to tell you on this recording, is the fact that they all do the same thing. I don't care if it's Mac OS X. I don't care if it's Linux. I don't care if it's Windows. They do the same thing. Every one of them does the same thing. You get on to Google and you look for whatever you want and you find it and you go on your merry way. You watch videos on YouTube. You whatever you want to do, you can do it. You can do email on Google. So it's really, for that matter, I can do it on a Chromebook. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the internet, and because it's really not too much more to it than that. So it really comes down to a matter of personal choice. If you're a Windows user and you like using Windows, well, okay, use Windows. If you're a Mac user and you like OS X, use Mac OS X. It doesn't matter. Same things for Linux. If you like Linux, use Linux, and that's the way it works. That's the way we are in our lives. I mean, everybody has a Ford versus Chevy. You know what I'm saying? It's just Toyota versus Nissan, whatever you want to call it. It all boils down to personal choices. And like I said, that's what it's all about, living in a free country, as long as it is still free. Uh, but like I said, it's just, I can do all these till I'm blue in the face, and it doesn't really matter because in the end, you're going to choose what you want to choose, and I'm going to choose what I want to choose. And that's just pretty much it. And that's okay. That's good. If you're happy with the facts that Windows is a little slower, not as snappy as Linux, that's fine. If, like I said, it's all what you get used to. And I believe me, when I was running Windows all the time, I didn't give it a second thought. It was what it was. You click on a program, it takes this long for it to come up, and you go on your merry way. Pretty much it. It's all relevant, I guess, is what I'm saying. All right, just a brief aside. I'm over here in Windows 10. I want to use the basically the video pad editor to edit this. I just want to play around. This is all this whole video has been about, me playing around. So I don't know if it makes any difference to you guys, but it does to me. And so I do these videos for me, as I said in the last little segment. So that's all I wanted to say, and I just wanted to let you know where I was at to do this. So there you go. But whatever it is I'm saying, I think I've said it enough. I think we're going to get off here and get on with some other activities today and get some things done. So you guys have a great day. I do really appreciate you watching these silly videos of mine because, like I said, I don't really make them for anybody but me. I enjoy making videos, and I enjoy playing around with computers, and I enjoyed a lot of things. I enjoy eating. You guys probably, if you've seen me lately, you know. But like I said, it is what it is, and so that's going to be it from me. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, and we will see you.